Chapter 1. The Silent Killers Within Us. Have you ever caught yourself feeling like something inside you is holding back your true power? As if you're carrying an invisible backpack full of other people's voices, doubts, and imposed rules. You look at the world and don't see yourself in it. You listen to yourself and only hear the echo of other people's beliefs, repeated by you 1,000 times as if they were your own. But are they really? We rarely stop to think about where our thoughts come from. Why do you believe you're incapable, undeserving, or not the one who can? These thoughts aren't yours. That's not really you thinking. Someone once told you that, and you chose to believe it. Toxic beliefs don't shout. They whisper. They hide in your habits, in your doubts, in every "I can't" you quietly repeat to yourself. They're invisible chains locked into your mind long before you even knew you had a choice. They come from childhood, from school, from the first rejection, from bad experiences, from the words of those who were broken themselves. They sink under your skin, disguise themselves as your inner truth, and with each passing day their voice grows louder. They say, "Don't stand out. You're not good enough. You don't deserve love. You'll never make it." You didn't choose those phrases, but you chose to believe them. You carry them with you as if they define who you are, but you are more, so much more. Somewhere inside, beneath layers of fear, doubt, and habits, your true self is alive. The one who wants to dream, who's ready to take risks, who knows they deserve more, but that self is afraid to come out because the voice of belief scares them again and again. And so you stand still, looking at your dreams from afar, thinking they're too big, that you're not the kind of person who can chase them. But be honest with yourself. Where did that thought come from? Who put it inside you? And most importantly, why are you still holding on to it? Realizing that you're living with someone else's beliefs, that's the first step. That's the moment of awakening. That's the voice inside you asking for the first time, what if I'm not the person I was taught to be? You don't have to stay within these boundaries. You're not a tree that was once planted and left to grow in the shade. You're human. You can choose the light. You can pull up your roots and replant yourself somewhere you can grow freely. Stop living by someone else's rules. Start listening to yourself, not the voice of fear, the voice of the dream. It's faint for now, but it's there, and it's calling you. Chapter 2. The quiet voices that steal your essence. They don't arrive with a bang, no shouting, no accusations. They whisper, somewhere in the background, somewhere deep inside you. These beliefs, they disguise themselves as your inner voice, as caution, as common sense. But in truth, they steal your present. They rob you of the chance to be yourself. Have you ever felt like you're doing everything right, but it still feels like you're living someone else's life? As if someone long ago wrote a script for you, and you've been unconsciously following it, even though it no longer fits. That's how toxic beliefs work. They're like old clothes that no longer suit you. Too tight, uncomfortable, hard to breathe in, yet you keep wearing them. You have to be agreeable. You're not allowed to make mistakes. Achieve something first, then you can live. Don't stand out. They'll laugh at you. Be strong. Don't show your feelings. Each of these beliefs might have once served a purpose. Maybe they even protected you at some point, but they haven't grown with you. They're frozen in time. And now, every time you try to step outside your comfort zone, they pull you back to where it's safe, but lifeless. The tricky part is most of them don't show themselves right away because they don't sound foreign. They sound like you, your thoughts, your logic, your reality. And so, once again, you make a choice that doesn't make you happier. Once again, you sacrifice yourself to fit in. Once again, you follow a path that leaves your true self behind. Psychologists call them introjects, beliefs we inherit from others, parents, teachers, society. But we never filtered them. And now they're like a virus in your system. They create conflict between who you've become and who you're allowed to be. But you don't have to stay silent within yourself. You don't have to obey those voices. You can stop and ask, is this belief really mine? Or is it just an echo from the past? That question, that's where freedom begins, not with a fight, but with awareness, because you can't change what you can't see. But the moment you notice it, a door opens, a chance to reclaim your voice, the real one. You are not the result of other people's expectations. You're a process, a story, a consciousness with the right to evolve. And if you're tired of the silence inside, the kind where you are nowhere to be found, then it's time to start listening, not to those who programmed you, but to your real, breathing, living self. You are not a rule book. You are a choice, and you have every right to change it. Chapter 3. Roots that grow in the dark. Have you ever seen a tree stretching toward the sun, but with roots trapped under asphalt? It might look strong, but inside it's exhausted, because all its energy goes not into growing, but into surviving. That's how it feels to live with toxic beliefs. You seem to be moving forward, you seem to be growing, but every step is painful, as if something invisible is gripping your ankles, holding you back. These beliefs don't always sound harsh. Sometimes they're soft, almost gentle. You're just not ready yet. Wait a little longer. Now's not the time. What if this ruins everything you've already built? And it's those whispers that make you afraid to try, afraid to fail. You think that if you leave the job you hate, your world will fall apart, that if you speak your truth, you'll be rejected, that if you love deeply, you'll become vulnerable and inevitably get hurt. The problem isn't that you're afraid. Fear is natural. The problem is where that fear comes from. Most of those fears are rooted in things we were taught. Mistakes are shameful. If you want to be loved, you have to fit in. If someone criticizes you, it means you're not good enough. But no one ever explained that a person who's never allowed to make mistakes will never grow into maturity. That love without freedom is just dependency. That criticism isn't always truth. More often it's someone else's pain echoing outward. You're not who they wanted you to be. You are the one who's tired of playing that role. You are the one who's starting to see the forest despite the trees. There's a concept in psychology called autonomy of consciousness. It's when you finally realize your thoughts might not actually be your own, that you can pause the inner monologue and replay it as an outsider. Hear how the voice of your mother, your teacher, your culture still speaks through you, and then ask yourself honestly, do I really want to keep living by these rules? Giving yourself permission to say no, that is the first taste of freedom. You don't have to be convenient. You don't have to be successful in someone else's eyes. You don't have to be liked, especially if it costs you your authenticity. You are not a project. You are a living, breathing being, and you have the right to grow, even if that growth makes others uncomfortable. The world is full of people walking in the shadow of their own truth. But there are also those who once said, enough. And even if that enough came out quiet, choked by fear, it became the beginning of their real life. Maybe now, it's your turn. Chapter 4. Your childhood room still echoes in your mind. Imagine walking back into the house where you grew up. Everything feels smaller. The furniture, the ceilings, even the staircase you once climbed like a champion. It's all familiar, yet no longer yours. And then you hear a voice, not out loud, but inside, a voice you know by heart, the one that spoke above your crib, across the kitchen table, through the closed door of your parents' room. It's the voice that used to say, don't shout, that's embarrassing. Stop daydreaming, do something useful. Why are you so sensitive? It was just a joke. You're only good when you bring home perfect grades. You have to be strong. Real ones don't cry. You grew up. You learned how to live. You learned how to be good. But here's the strange thing. The life you're living doesn't feel like yours. It's like you're doing everything right, and still, you feel empty, as if someone promised you a reward for obedience and then forgot to give it to you. Why? Because you were handed beliefs like school uniforms. Here, wear this, it suits you. But you're not a uniform. You're a person, alive, changing, sometimes contradictory, always real. And here's the hard truth. Those beliefs weren't just handed to you. You absorbed them. Because as a child, love was your lifeline. When a child has to choose between being true to themselves and earning love, they'll always choose love. That's how toxic beliefs take root. I must be easy to love, or I won't be loved at all. I can't be angry, or I'll be rejected. If I fail, I'm a bad person. It runs deep, and it's terrifying, because it means you've been playing a game your whole life, and no one ever asked if you wanted to play. But here's what matters. This isn't a life sentence. They're not genetic. They're not hardwired. They're more like outdated software. And yes, they can be updated. Not in one night, not without pain, but it can be done. And it begins with something simple: noticing. Noticing that you're living by rules that aren't your own. Noticing that the voice in your head isn't you, it's who shaped you. Noticing that there's another way. And even when fear screams, don't you dare, you can still take that quiet, steady first step in a new direction. There is power in giving yourself permission to doubt, to ask, what if what they taught me was wrong? And if you're already asking that question, congratulations. You're already breaking free from voices that were never yours. Chapter 5. Who are you without everything they told you to be? Ask yourself this: who would you be if no one had ever told you who you're supposed to be? If no one ever said that success means status, that love means sacrifice, that your worth depends on your usefulness? Would there still be someone left inside you, or would the whole thing collapse like a house of cards? It's a terrifying question, because sometimes the honest answer is, I don't know. But that, right there, is the beginning of freedom. Not the loud kind, the real kind. The one that starts inside and doesn't need to be seen to exist. We're so used to our beliefs, they feel like skin. But not everything that's familiar is truly yours. Some things only stuck around because you never tried to take them off. Picture yourself as a tree. Once you were small and flexible, your branches bending in every direction, and someone came and hung a tag on you, oak. But maybe you're a birch, or a maple, or something else entirely. At first it was just a label, then someone nailed it in place. Now it's grown into the bark. You look at it and think, well, it says so, must be true. But it's not. That tag isn't you. It's someone else's name etched onto your life. When you live trapped by toxic beliefs, you stop asking questions. You stop choosing from desire and start reacting from fear. Fear of rejection, fear of ridicule, fear of being not enough. You start playing out a script that was never yours, just to keep your part as a good person. But here's the paradox. All those beliefs were built to protect you from pain. And now, they are the pain. The person who once told you you're not allowed to fail might have thought they were preparing you for life, but what they really gave you was anxiety, perfectionism, a chronic feeling that you're never enough, even when you've done everything right. And now you stand at a fork in the road. One path: keep playing, keep striving, keep your jaw clenched, wear the armor that keeps you untouchable, even to yourself. The other path: stop, listen to the silence, and notice the faintest whisper rising from deep within. You don't have to be who they want you to be. That's your true voice. It doesn't yell, it doesn't demand, it simply exists. And every time you choose yourself, even in the tiniest way, that voice gets louder. When you walk away from conversations that drain you, when you say no, even though your hands are shaking, when you rest, even if there's still work to do, that's not weakness. That's the beginning of a new identity. You don't need to fix yourself today because you're not broken. You just need to remember who you were before the world taught you to forget. That's where freedom begins. Not in a dramatic leap, not in one night, but in the quiet, vital act of coming back to yourself. Chapter 6. How to tell your voice apart from the ones living inside you. When a voice speaks inside you, can you always be sure it's you talking? You're walking down the street and suddenly a thought floats up. You've achieved nothing. You failed again. You're weak. And you don't question it. It sounds familiar, even reasonable. But wait, whose voice is that really? Sometimes we live with other people's voices in our heads for so long, we start mistaking them for our own thoughts. It might be your father's voice, in stern and sharp, or your mother's anxious whisper, just don't mess up, or a teacher's careless verdict. You're not one of the ones who'll go far. They're long gone, but their words remain like nails driven into the walls of your inner house, and you live inside those walls without even realizing they're not yours. Those voices became your beliefs, but they didn't come from you. You just wore them long enough, like clothes handed to you at birth. So how do you know which voice is yours? It's surprisingly simple. Your voice is always warm, even when it speaks hard truths. It might be honest, but never cruel. It says you made a mistake, but this isn't the end. Not, you are a mistake. It may be demanding, but never degrading. It guides. It doesn't judge. It speaks from depth, not from fear. Toxic beliefs have one goal: control through fear. Be perfect, or they won't love you. Be useful, or you'll be rejected. Be agreeable, or you'll end up alone. But your real voice speaks from trust. It might say, you're at your lowest right now. Yes, that's true, but you're not garbage. You're just tired. Let's breathe. You don't hear it with your mind. You feel it with your body. Your muscles soften when it speaks. They tighten when it's someone else talking through you. To begin hearing yourself, you have to get quiet enough to listen. Turn off the noise. Let go of what's expected of you. Close your eyes and ask, what do I want? Not to impress, not to please, but truly, deeply, what do I want? And don't rush the answer. Sometimes your real voice isn't even words. It's a sensation. Not a sentence, but a quiet yes or no that rises up when you stop chasing approval. To find your voice is to stop searching for external truth. You're not a hungry hunter for other people's opinions. You're a whole person, learning to trust yourself. It will be hard at first. You'll doubt. You'll wonder. You'll slip back into old patterns. But every time you choose to be honest with yourself, even in something small, you strengthen that voice. And one day, it becomes your inner compass. You realize then, your path isn't a race toward achievement. It's a return back to yourself. Chapter 7. The scripts we didn't write and how to walk off the stage. There's this strange thing. You're an adult now, making your own choices. And yet, it still feels like someone else is writing your life. You end up in the same kind of relationships, take the same kind of job, face the same kind of crises, and respond the same way again and again. Why? Because inside you, there are scripts, deep-rooted programs written from pain, fear, upbringing, and experience. You didn't choose them. They chose you when you were too young, too vulnerable to choose for yourself. Here's a classic example. A child praised only for getting good grades grows up to be a perfectionist. They don't know who they are unless they're doing well. They burn out at work, punish themselves at the gym, wear a mask until it cracks, all to maintain the fragile illusion, I am worthy of love if I'm flawless. Another example, a girl raised by an emotionally unstable mother starts gravitating toward unpredictable people in adulthood because anxiety is familiar. Peace? That feels alien, wrong even. So she returns to the chaos, not because it feels good, but because it feels like home. And that's how scripts are born. We're drawn not to what's healthy, but to what's familiar. But here's the real question. If you didn't write the script, do you have to keep acting it out? The answer is no. You have the right to walk off the stage mid-scene, to say, I don't want this role anymore, and start writing your own story. How? First, recognize that you're in a script, that the anxiety you feel every day may not be about now. It might be echoing from the past. that you don't have to be the victim or the savior or the controller, that inside you there is not just pain, but power. Next, ask yourself, what do I actually want? Not to prove something, not to earn someone's approval, but honestly, deeply. Sometimes you won't know the answer right away because you've been performing for so long you've forgotten how to live. Then comes the practice. Catch yourself in the moment. When the familiar reaction surges, you want to lash out, shut down, walk away, and instead pause, breathe, try something new, choose differently. You ask, is it really that simple? It's hard. Scripts are like invisible strings. They've held us for so long we don't even feel them pulling. But with each new choice, you begin rewriting the code. You become the author. At first, it's in the small things. You didn't snap like you usually do. You said yes, not out of fear, but curiosity. You didn't abandon yourself, and then slowly you notice life is shifting. Not like a movie, not all at once, but for real. You start acting not from I have to, but from I want to. You begin saying, this matters to me. And your voice shakes, not from fear, but from power. And that's when you leave the old script behind, not like someone escaping, but like someone stepping onto the stage for the first time and declaring, now I write. This story is mine. Chapter 8. Coming home to yourself, not through struggle, but through acceptance. You've come a long way, from realizing that the voices in your head weren't always your own, to understanding that you have the right to walk away from an old script. And now it's time to ask the real question, who am I without all of it? Without the need to please, without the urge to explain yourself constantly, without the fear of getting it wrong, of not being liked, of being misunderstood, without the chains. Who are you? The answer can be terrifying because at first all you find is emptiness, like standing at a crossroads where no GPS works, no maps, just you and the road, just you and the voice inside. But this isn't the voice of toxic beliefs, not the voice that says you should be tougher, don't feel. This is your real voice, gentle, warm, the one that used to be drowned out by fear. Now you hear it, not loud but steady, and it says, I'm here, I'm you. Here's what matters. Toxic beliefs don't disappear overnight. They'll come back, like phantom pain, like muscle memory. But now you have a choice to respond differently, to look inward, not escape outward, to live, not just survive. This is not about fighting. It's about love, about returning. You're not at war with yourself. You're learning to welcome yourself home. You're not rebuilding. You're clearing away the rubble to reveal what was always there. The path back to yourself isn't made of grand victories. It's built on quiet, inner yes moments. Yes, I can be both sensitive and strong. Yes, I've made mistakes, but I'm not broken. Yes, I'm allowed to change my mind. Yes, I don't want to live in this cage anymore, even if I built it myself. And now this is important. You don't have to be perfect to be real. You don't have to have all the answers to move forward. You don't have to earn love. You are already worthy of it. The great psychotherapist Carl Rogers once said, the curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. That's it. That's the essence. When you stop fighting yourself, you begin to grow. When you stop controlling every feeling, you start to feel. When you stop being a stranger to yourself, you finally come home. And maybe right now, in this exact moment, for the first time in a long time, you feel it. The stillness, the space, the light within. This is you. No filters, no masks, no chains. You are standing at the start of a new life, not one where you'll be flawless, but one where you'll be fully alive. Somewhere deep down, you've always been this person. You just needed to remember. Now you can step forward, not as a copy, not as a shadow, but as someone who once looked in the mirror and said, I am me, and that is enough.